Kev here, and with this video I'll be going over the process of dry hopping kombucha. So this has been one of my favorite flavors for kombucha. It's just very distinct and different. I like this full flavor hoppiness, but then it also pairs really well with citrusy type fruits. So getting into the process, you'll start your kombucha off the same way you always do. You'll do your primary fermentation, and the one thing I do is I'll stop that primary fermentation a little earlier than I normally would, just because hops bring that really bitter flavor characteristics out. I wouldn't want it to be, in a kombucha that's too tart. You want it to be drinkable still, so I like to have the kombucha a little sweet, and plus I'll be adding some oranges in, to help, make it a little bit more sweet versus tart and bitter. And as always, I throw some ginger in as well. So yeah, going back to the primary fermentation, stop it a little bit early. Otherwise, I've already pulled out my scobies, so this is ready to go to start adding in my fruit and hops for the secondary fermentation. As far as the hops, I like to use these artisan hops. It's basically a Citra whole leaf hop. So the distinction is there's either whole leaf, which are actually like little leafy hops. It just seems a lot fresher and better to use. The pellets themselves, they're processed. If you put them in your liquid, they're going to kind of, fall apart and get real goopy within your kombucha. So I just felt that these are a little bit better to use than the pellets. Like I mentioned, they're Citra hops, so these are really commonly used in beer brewing, and they pair really well with orange or any kind of citrus flavors. So that's kind of what I'm trying to replicate here. And generally the amount of hops I would use is about 1/4 ounce per gallon. So I have maybe about 6.5 gallons here. Rounding up to 7, I would probably be at about 1 ounce and 3/4. I'd be at about 1 3/4 ounces. This is about 2 ounces in the bag. I think I want it to be a little stronger in this batch, so I'm probably just going to throw this whole bag in, so the full 2 ounces. But yeah, these are great. They smell super fresh. They have that nice hoppy flavor. So I'm going to pour this in. So those are going, and like I mentioned, I like to add in some fruit. So in the past, I've used tangelos, which are oranges with kind of a grapefruit citrusy flavor as well. That went really well with these Citra hops. Couldn't find those this time, so I'm going to use these navel oranges instead. I think it'll be a pretty similar flavor profile. So I'm just going to cut these up and add them in. All right, so I have my 2 ounces of hops in here. I added in about 7 of these oranges. So I typically do about 1 cup of fruit per gallon, and that's about roughly 1 orange per gallon. And then I added in some ginger, so probably about 1.5 cups or 2 cups of ginger. All right, so here's my kombucha with the hops added in and the navel oranges and the ginger. I'm just going to stir this up a little bit so that it all gets distributed evenly, it all gets covered, and making sure those sugars get distributed around for the secondary fermentation. I think this looks good. I'm just going to put the cover on, and then this Airlock. So this Airlock, I have a little bit of star sand in here, just so in case if any sugars get in here, it won't begin to mold or anything. But the CO2 that's dispelled through this fermentation process can still get out. And I'm going to clamp these on. So this is all set to go. I'm going to just let it ferment for 2 days as the secondary fermentation. And I'll probably taste it regularly until it hits kind of the flavor I'm looking for. All right, so I let the secondary fermentation go a couple days, and I'm really happy with the flavor. So I'm going to drop it in a keg. First, I'm going to take this lid off where the airlock was on. All done with this. All right, now I'm going to open the valve to dispense the kombucha into my keg here. I have a little bit of a mesh strainer on this filter just so I can catch any particles or anything that might come through. All right, there it is. I kegged up the kombucha. I'm going to hook it up to the CO2 now and let that go for a day or two. That should be enough to carbonate it. All right, it's finally the day. My kombucha is carbonated and ready to drink. So I have it on tap, and I'll do a pour to see how it turned out. There we go. I might have set the pressure up a little too high, seeing how carbonated it is, but that looks really good. One thing I like to do when I hop kombucha is to add on a little bit of ground up hops. So what I have is this little herb grinder I got off Amazon, and I'll just put one hop in here, grind it up, and then I can actually just put it onto the kombucha. So there we go. I found that helps make it a little bit more hoppy and a little bit more flavorful. So there it is, nice and hoppy. I like that it has that nice hop flavor, but it's not overpowering. So it's still very drinkable. And then adding in that orange really complements the citra hops. They go hand in hand. It makes it a really drinkable, enjoyable drink. So yeah, give it a shot. I hope this helps, and cheers.